Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show. We are here for our first review show of 2026. Lots of firsts that we're getting into at the start of the year. And looking forward to a big show tonight. Before we do all that, Mark, you're joining me as per on the other end in the studio in Nuremberg. How are things? Have you had a nice weekend watching Bundesliga footy?
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, I've been kind of combining it with Bundesliga and a bit of FA Cup as well. I'm sure you, Rory, don't really want to remember that one too much. But yeah, I'm glad that we've had FA Cup back on DAZN as well this weekend. It's the only football we actually get in England on DAZN, which is good. So I've been checking a few FA Cup games too. But obviously the Bundesliga didn't disappoint on return, did it? Obviously 2 games postponed, unfortunately, due to the horrendous weather over the Bundesrepublik at the minute. I mean, it could have been more. I mean, you probably saw a lot of snow on the pitch in just about every game this weekend across the country. But yeah, we were lucky to get 7 games going ahead this weekend, and they definitely didn't disappoint with obviously 35 goals across those 7 matches.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of stuff to talk about. Really looking forward to the show and what we've got in store for you. So make sure you sit back and enjoy with us, whether it's via YouTube or via podcasts. Before we get into anything, of course, if you can do, leave a like on the show, leave your comments, whether you're watching live or otherwise, leave a rating and review as well if you're listening on podcasts. Big shout out to our partners at the start of this year who are ever faithful to us. Firstly, Covert Football Trips, fantastic company to go out and kind of have your weekend's worth of football organised for you. So that's fantastic organisation. So make sure you check those out. And of course, we're also in collaboration with Bully News, Runa, and the gang. Excellent German coverage in English. Everything you want is there over on bullynews.com. So yeah, Mark, I mean, obviously our Monday night show is done usually in a certain way. We've kind of suggested on socials that we're kind of going to be doing things a little bit differently this year. So we're kind of being, instead of going through every single match in granular detail, we're moving slightly away from that. We're going to be talking more about the hot topics that come out of the weekend, aren't we? And so we've got some great things to talk about tonight and cover in a bit more depth. It gives us a bit more time to do that in a slightly kind of shortened show as well. Let's talk about that. And then at the end of the show, we've got something quite exciting that we want to share with you as well, which we will say, of course, in a little while. First things first, if we're doing it chronologically, Friday night football was excellent to have back, Mark, and really explode this weekend with an awesome game between Borussia Dortmund and Frankfurt. 3-3 the game ended, just as when you thought Frankfurt had won it at the last. BBB go down the other end and manage to equalise. But the thing that we're talking about here now with context of this game, and we'll be referring to it a fair bit, is Frankfurt. They're this great entertaining team, but they're really struggling because they can't seem to defend. So we're kind of picking up a bit of a talking point here. So obviously, if you're a fan of the Eagles, do get involved. Let us know what you think of the current state of affairs from a defensive point of view. Mark, do you want to pick up anything and run with it, in particular that you saw in the game on Friday in particular, and then we can kind of go into the hooks and crooks of why Frankfurt are still struggling, defensively. Things haven't changed from the tail end of, a lot of 2025. 2026 has not started any differently for the Eagles, despite being fantastic to watch. I'm sure it is driving their fans a little bit round the bend as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've got to credit both teams for what they produced in this game. I mean, it was a great spectacle for fans watching all over Europe, really, on the curtain raiser for 2026 in the Bundesliga. I mean, I thought both teams played well. I think both Topmuller of Frankfurt and Kovac of Dortmund came out and said it was a great watch for the neutral, for sure. I mean, there were great goals in there, defensive howlers, penalties, just about everything went on in the game. And obviously 2 goals in added time as well, which kind of really made what was a very good game into a classic, really. But yeah, we are focusing mostly on this kind of Frankfurt defense and goalkeeper. I would include the goalkeeping situation very much in that defense as well. I mean, I think the first thing we got to mention is obviously they go for a kind of they go for the back 3, don't they, with wing backs. Obviously Nathaniel Brown and surprisingly Ritz Doan actually played wing back kind of in this game, which was a little bit questionable for me. He didn't really provide the support to Christensen on his side, really, for me. That was lacking a little bit. I feel as though we've talked quite a lot about that back 3, really. Teat, Koch, and Christensen. I think particularly we've got to mention Robin Koch does always have an error in him, doesn't he? And he can often get caught for pace running down. He did actually do a few good interceptions in this particular game, particularly in the first half. There were a couple of memorable tackles and interceptions on crosses, which kind of prevented further damage to that Frankfurt goal. But in general, he can be awfully, he loses his man at corners very often. And, Frankfurt do concede a lot of goals from corner kicks as well over the season, and could have done, by the way, to Schlotterbeck as well. Let's not forget Schlotterbeck almost made it 3-2 in the injury time, didn't he? Before Frankfurt eventually made it 3-2, but it still wasn't out for the Eagles in this game. I also think Teat, as good as he is on the ball, he's obviously the key man that brings it out at the back, but he also has a few errors in him, and he's also a very temperamental kind of player, and he's not, at times, I feel, the leader that you really need in that Frankfurt side, coming from the back. He's a very hot-headed player, I would describe him as. I think last season he got minimum 2 sendings, maybe 3 sendings off as well over the season. Then we've got to mention, obviously, the goalkeeping situation, which is just a kind of merry-go-round between Kao Santos and Michael Zetterer, isn't it? I mean, I think this is the 4th time the starting goalkeeper has been changed this season. It started off as Zetterer. He was hooked after a couple of games, and Santos came back in. Then Santos' poor form and Zetterer came back in round about kind of late October, November time. And now he's decided to go with Santos again in 2026. And to be honest, at times in that game, I'm not sure really whether Santos really covered himself in glory again on his next chance. I mean, he did make a couple of good saves, but I mean, there was one moment in the first half, actually, unfortunately for Dortmund, they didn't manage to capitalize on the opportunity, but he was just completely caught in no man's land after a corner. And it fell to, I can't remember who it was from Dortmund, but it fell to a player who should really have scored. And if you watch Santos' position, it was just completely no man's land. So I definitely feel as though a new goalkeeper should be on the shopping list, to be honest, for Frankfurt. They were obviously let down really by Kevin Trapp in the summer, like kind of bailing on them really at the very last minute. And they've just not been able to find a suitable keeper. And I'm one of those guys that believes all good defensive stem from a kind of reliable keeper, and Frankfurt simply don't have that at the minute. And 33 goals conceded in 16 games, which is the 2nd worst defense, the 3rd worst now, but it was at the time after Friday evening, it was the worst in the league. But obviously Augsburg and Wolfsburg have now overtaken them courtesy of those batterings that they took respectively. Yeah. But whatever can be said, it's 2 goals a game they're conceding over a whole half a season. It's just not good enough. And they've got to improve that if they want to get Champions League this season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is how Topmuller gets his team, to shut up shop, I guess. So as you said, they've conceded 33 goals, but they've also scored 33 goals, which is good. Obviously they've missed Johnny B at times, and Doan's production has gone up and down. I don't think that position necessarily suits him too much. So is it, I don't really like talking about systems because it's too sore for me talking about, all the Amorim stuff, system versus whatever. But we'll mention it here. Frankfurt have gone between this back three with wing backs, so back five, whatever, and sometimes they play four at the back. So is it a case of one looking more solid than the other? You've rightly mentioned the goalkeeper situation. 3 clean sheets in 16 Bundesliga games obviously is reflected by the amount of goals that they've conceded. You've mentioned their vulnerability. They looked vulnerable at the weekend from a set piece point of view. They concede a lot of goals from long distance, so they've got to be able to close in those shots a bit better because their goalkeepers aren't managing to deal with that. Zetterer always looks uncomfortable in that sense, particularly from long range. He doesn't seem to cover the goal as well as maybe he used to. Also open to the counter for me. Individual errors, I think you've mentioned as well already, Mark. There's a lot of things being chucked into that stew that has led to this and continues to lead to this. What's the way for Frankfurt to, we're only halfway through the season. We're not even there actually. So all is fair game. They've got half a season to change the narrative and try and make that defense, more shored up for the rest of the season. What do we think is the way to do it? Is it a case of going back to basics, maybe 4 at the back, giving, or maybe it has to be 3 at the back to give, Koch a bit of cover because he is being caught out from time to time and he does make errors, and you maybe need Tiat and the others to cover him. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, if you look at the clean sheets they have kept, they've only actually kept 3 clean sheets this season, and they were ironically home wins, all against the current bottom 3. 3 of the current bottom 4 in the league. That was against St. Pauli when Peter and I were actually there. That game, they actually went also with that same back 3. But I think the difference there is that Elisa Skahiri was in there. And I think Skahiri kind of provides a little bit more cover as well. He's more like your kind of classic defensive midfielder, isn't he? Whereas when they go with Højlund and Larson, which they did obviously on Friday evening, it gives them more attacking impetus from midfield, but they lack that defensive cover. And obviously Skahiri has been on international duty. I believe he's back now, so he could potentially start against Stuttgart. For me, he's a must. He's got to go in there in that game because obviously with Stuttgart scoring goals and playing the way they are, they need double extra kind of cover. Whether I would go back to a back 4, probably not, because the problem is with football is you want to get that balance, and technically they have got the balance because they've scored the same number as they've conceded. But the problem is that you don't want to lose that attack as well, because one thing you can't say that, the Frankfurt have been is entertaining this season. And part of that has been the wing backs. Obviously, as bad as Brown is defensively, he's very good going forward, and I think probably if there was one thing I would change, it'd probably be the quality of cover that they're providing. Because for me, Brown and Doan are much better as a further forward on the pitch, in my eyes. They're not wing backs, really. I think Brown is fantastic with the ball at his feet, running at that defense, but defensively, he just doesn't provide the cover that's needed. And I think the other problem is that Namdi Collins has also gone off form this season as well. So that's been an issue because he was much better in that position last season, along with Nath Brown as well. So if it was, in my eyes, I would stick with the same position, but I'd probably be looking either to stick Skahiri in as a kind of regular starter to provide a bit more kind of cover defensively, or I'll be looking to bring in better covering fullbacks, to be honest, wing backs, really, because I think one of those two systems could be interesting to provide, the basis of a better Frankfurt defense, in my eyes.
Indeed. So, it was a great advert for the Bundesliga, which we love. But it was an interesting point to pick up and talk about this evening. So, we'll move on to our next topic and in relation to a game, which is a statement win, very happily said, by VfB Stuttgart over Bayer Leverkusen on Saturday evening, the top spiel. And what this statement win has done, Mark, has really opened up even more this race for UCL places in the Bundesliga this season, particularly. Obviously, as a result of that win, it moves Stuttgart level on points with Leverkusen on 29, and Leipzig as a result of their game not happening. So they do have that game in hand. Of course, now we have the likes of Hoffenheim, Frankfurt still, and Dortmund just ahead in second place. I think we can quite happily discount Bayern as qualified for the Champions League. I mean, this really was, a game that everyone was looking forward to, and something that a lot of people were tipping to be a close run thing, but probably Leverkusen were going to take it. Stuttgart have been playing well, and lots of positivity around them. But I think there was no expectation that they were going to go and comfortably win. And that first half, I remember you texting me saying like, "Oh wow, that's like that's a famous first half from the VfB," because I mean, yeah. It was insane. Such a good first half, like so well constructed. The goals, in the main were excellent. And Leverkusen were blown away. And this win had been a long time coming. We talked about the record of Stuttgart versus Leverkusen, and even Stuttgart in some of those bigger games as well. That really puts the cat amongst the pigeons, I guess, makes, Leverkusen feel very vulnerable, probably. What did you make of the game? And then we can kind of roll into this narrative of obviously Champions League football and the race for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, you've got to say hats off to the VfB. I tipped the reverse. I think I went for a 3-1 Leverkusen, but I was completely wrong in this case. And I think, first of all, I've got to say, I think the 4-3-3 system just worked brilliantly as well for the away side. I felt as though that's probably the best they've looked in that first half, but since probably 2 seasons ago when they got Vizemeister, obviously the runners-up, that famous season. For me, that was the best performance in 18 months. I really do believe that. I think they were stellar across the board, really. Got to say, I just love the front three as well. It's been a long time since we've seen like a full front three from VfB like that, deployed like that. And I think it almost reminded me of the team of Pellegrino Matarazzo all those years ago, and with the likes of Silas playing in the wing position really high up, and I felt as though Leveling was just outstanding in this particular game. I just hope it's not because the Premier League are looking like they're calling, because I did hear that Bournemouth are looking at him to replace Semenyo. So I really hope that he's not going to trade the 60,000 regulars at Stuttgart for 10,000 regulars, if that, at Bournemouth. But yeah.
I think he has kind of come out and squashed those rumours. Yeah, I guess as every good professional would, but hopefully that's genuine from his side of things. But like you say, yeah, he was excellent.
But he really was. And obviously Dennis Undav, all Stuttgart fans must be absolutely ecstatic about the return of form to him, because, since he came back from injury, what was it, November? You've seen an enormous improvement in the quality of Stuttgart performances, to be honest. This isn't the first one we've seen recently either. Let's not forget they blitzed Bremen as well, just before Christmas as well, away from home. But obviously this is more of a kind of marquee win over a top 4 rival. But it's been a while that they've been getting things right away from home, the VfB. And I think things are starting to look even better. I never actually bought into the hype that they were underperforming, to be honest. I thought they've had a very high fixture demand this season. They're still in the Pokal, they're still in the Europa League, and I think the fact they have won 9 games is pretty impressive, to be honest, at this stage of the season. The midfield worked brilliantly. I think we've got to give more credit to Nicolas Nate, who has been one of the players who's really improved this season. A guy who'd been nothing but a kind of journeyman, really, for them. A bench warmer, a kind of last 10 minute substitute when you 1-0 up. that's all he ever was really until this season, really. And he's really kind of come into his own. He's scored a few goals and he's kind of made that midfield his own. And what for so long was like a kind of two-man midfield with Karazor and Stiller has now become a three-man midfield recently in the last month or two. And it's looked fantastically good. Maxi Mittelstädt back on form as well. Obviously, he'd had a drop off the early part of this season and kind of been forced out of the German team. But I expect he's going to be well in demand to get back into that Deutsche Mannschaft again next time that's announced. Just excellent all around. Defensively, they look better too. It was almost a pity that they conceded the penalty, because that would have been 3 straight clean sheets for them as well. Another man, Ramon Hendricks, who'd always been, not really the first name you were going to mention. Like he looks like he's finally found a partnership for Chabot, because to be honest, I feel as though, I don't know if you feel the same, Rory, but I feel like they've never really found a partner for Chabot. I mean, they've tried a lot. They've tried obviously Chase, Finn Jelch, who unfortunately, as a Nuremberg fan, has never really quite made that position his own. They've obviously Jaquez, who was probably the best one before. Zagadou, who's always injured. But I feel as though Ramon Hendricks could be the man, at least for the next 6 months to kind of fill in that spot. So all looking good for the VfB. Obviously they've got another big game against Frankfurt this midweek. But,
yes,
I mean, their season is progressing very nicely in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Howdy, DM. Nice to see you in the chat as well. Hope you're enjoying the show. So it's a big win. It helps to condense this top, top 7 in the league, again excluding Bayern. So Mark, in terms of the run in, like I say, we're halfway there. It's really nice and tight. It should be an excellent race for the rest of the season between these 6 teams. Do we think that any particular team has an edge? Obviously, Hoffenheim and Leipzig don't have Europe to contend with. Does that help? And then I guess secondly, do we think that all 6 of these teams have the same ambitions, I guess, as well? Like, does Hoffenheim have the aim of top 4 football? If we're saying top 4, obviously it could be top 5, depending on the coefficient rankings. But obviously top 4 is the traditional thing to aim for. What do you think? From my point of view, like Stuttgart's overall aim at the start of the season, I don't know necessarily would have been top 4 football. It would have been 100% big run in the Pokal and European football. I don't know necessarily if it would have been Champions League, but it probably now is. Dortmund, yes. Leipzig, yes, absolutely. What do we think about Frankfurt and Hoffenheim as well? What do you reckon we could see in this race for the next 17, 18 games?
Yeah, I definitely believe it's a 7-horse race for sure. And I think all 7 of these teams will believe they can get Champions League and will have ambitions for Champions League. I mean, obviously Frankfurt have been in it. They finished 3rd last season. So, I mean, they're going to be absolutely. I mean, I think they even expect Champions League, because obviously we saw Topmuller really came under some pressure from the board the back end of the 2025 because of kind of underwhelming performances. I would imagine the performance against Dortmund would have kind of got them back on side, because overall it was a good performance. But obviously they are falling off the pace a little bit. They're now 3 points behind with a significantly worse goal difference. And this game against Stuttgart is huge for them, to be honest. I think if they lose heavily against Stuttgart, we could see Topmuller like towards the end of his time, I would say, because he did definitely come under pressure the back end. They obviously got 4 points from those 2 games against Augsburg and Hamburg, which was just enough to kind of keep him steady. They should have won that game against Dortmund and didn't, and now they've got this huge 6-pointer against Stuttgart. Hoffenheim are really going under the radar, aren't they? A lot of people, from not the kind of big people that really know the Bundesliga aren't really talking that much about Hoffenheim, especially after last season when they barely stayed in the division as well under Ilse. But this season, it's just been a totally different team from them. And if they'd have won, say they'd have been allowed to play that game, they would have been third right now against Bremen. If they'd have won that game and played it, they'd be sitting third. And there's just been so many great stories coming out of them this season, haven't there? The likes of Aslani, Toure, you know, obviously the return to form of Kramaric, Lemperle, Kufal, you know, the kind of evergreen that just keeps getting an assist a game almost. They finally found a defensive partnership that works, and things are looking really good for them. And I think it was actually Peter, and he made a big tip at the beginning of the season. They were going to get top 4. And I think right now, I'm not going to say the favourites for it, but they look one of the more consistent sides in that race, to be honest. If I had to tip it now, go on, we might as well do tips and put our kind of neck on the line right now. Obviously, Bayern, I think Dortmund will definitely get in there because they're just so hard to beat this season. They've only lost 1 game out of 16. For me, you're not going to fail to get Champions League. And I think that's Kovac football. I think to steal one of our friend Cam's kind of cliches, you know, he says it's common sense football that they play under him. And I think it is. So I have them down as bankers for top 4. Then it's where the fun starts, really. And I think you've got to look at Leipzig as top 4 because even though they fell off badly at the back end of the 2025, losing the last 2 games, I still feel as though they've got a good team. And when Jan Diomande comes back after the AFCON, they'll be looking in a much better condition. In fact, I believe he should be back soon because Ivory Coast lost, didn't they? Yeah. So it's possible he could play Tuesday, but it might be the weekend. Possibly. So I would go for them. And then I think it's between Leverkusen, Stuttgart, Hoffenheim, and Frankfurt for the last place. Yeah, I think considering the fact that I tipped Leverkusen not even to get Europe at the start of the season, I'm going to tip them to miss out, actually. And I'm going to go Stuttgart, actually, for the top 4. I'm just going to go Stuttgart because I think watching that performance the other day and the way they played in general in recent weeks, I think they have just the edge over those other teams. And I think Hoffenheim will go close, but I think they might just be lacking that kind of experience in these kind of fixtures. So I would go for them. Yeah. And then obviously Hoffenheim and Leverkusen to get Europa League positions. What do you think, Rory?
I think so. Yeah, Dortmund. I agree. I think they'll come second, closely followed by Leipzig. I think they should go on a good run. They don't have the pressure of Europe. So if they don't get top 4, for me, it's a great disappointment. At least 1 place in theory again. If it's just top 4, I am saying, after that win, how can I not say my boys? But I agree. I think it'll be them or Hoffenheim. I don't think Leverkusen. I don't think Frankfurt. So that's our hot tips. Lovely stuff. Right, moving on to something we wanted to talk about. Very off the back of obvious headlines. What we've kind of put as our title of this show. Bayern 8, Wolfsburg 1, goals all over the shop, records being broken, big records are being threatened at the end of the season as well, Mark. I mean, the record meister go marching on. But, I mean, the thing we're going to talk about is relevant for all the players that stood out in this game. Is this the best Bayern attack we have seen in modern times? The likes of obviously Harry Kane leading the line with Michael Elise, Luis Diaz, Serge Gnabry, ever faithful. You've got Musiala and Leonard Carl in the mix as well. Maybe seems a bit cheeky to throw in Nicholas Jackson, but he's there. This is a outstanding quintet of striking options that they have. They are just relentless. If we're being honest, the league is done and dusted. If anything, to the extreme happens, then we're all for it. But yeah, the question being posed is, Bayern tonight, is it one of the most, or is it the best Bayern attack in modern times? And, might be a bit tongue in cheek, but it's something for us to debate a little bit. What are your thoughts on this? I guess it's easy for us to talk about because it's in plain sight. It's happening in front of us now. And people forget quite easily, I guess, players that have been and gone. Kane is trying to hunt down Lewandowski's record, which, he's already on 20 goals. They've now scored 60? They scored now 60 something goals already. 63 goals in 16 games, averaging basically 4 a game. 29 more than second place Leverkusen in terms of goals scored this season. The all-time record for goals in a season is 101. Back in 1971-72, which is their record. Can they break that? Diaz and Elise both got 9 goals each. The assist chart is just all Bayern in terms of the top. They've got 6 of the top 10 assists makers this season as well. The numbers are crazy. This is why they are so far ahead. What are your thoughts on this? Very impressive Bayern attack at the moment.
Yeah, I think it was actually one of my predictions at the beginning of the season that they were going to break the record number of points that Leverkusen set just 2 years ago, and they were going to get over 100 goals. And I think as things stand, they're on track for both, to be honest. I think the 100 goals looks like it's going to fall this season. I think the record points, obviously they've drawn 2 games. Leverkusen drew, I believe, 6 games that season and lost none. So they've still got a way to go for that because, that, and when the back end of the season comes, when the title's already done and dusted, you can see teams dropping points at that point, So that's still a bit dubious, but I think the 100 goals, look how many they've scored so far. As you say, they've already got 63 goals in less than half a season. So imagine they get another 2 or 3 tomorrow at Köln, then they're going to be on for 120, let alone 100, if we can double that. So It's pretty crazy numbers. It really is. And as you say, that front 3, for me, I know that you can normally call it recency bias. I think they call it that when you're seeing it in front of you, but the stats tell their own story. Ultimately, I can't remember. Obviously, Lewandowski is as good as he was, and in terms of goal numbers, yes, but I don't think he ever had wing partners that were as good as what Michael Elise and Luis Diaz were. Obviously, Elise's already got 9 assists this season, and Diaz is just 1 behind with 8. That is stellar numbers through just 16 games. It really is. Remember, assists don't even include penalties won as well, which in my opinion, they should. I've always believed that if you win the free kick or the penalty, then it should count as an assist. But maybe they do that, kind of not to give players credit for potential dives and stuff like that, which is maybe understandable. But it's still incredible numbers at this stage. And just the constant threat that they provide is just absolutely crazy at the minute. Obviously, Harry Kane's on 20 goals, as you say, but Luis Diaz and Elise are both on 9 each. So that means that literally Diaz is now on 17 goal contributions in 20 games. And I think he missed a couple through injury as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
He's on round about a goal or assist a game from a wide position. Elise is even better than a goal or assist a game. He's on 18 goal contributions from a wide position, 9 goals, 9 assists through just 16 league games. Incredible numbers. Obviously, let's not forget Leonard Carl as well. He deserves praise in this as well. He's obviously a youngster and he's likely to be replaced by Musiala. Let's not forget there's a certain Jamal Musiala who I think has been out longer than expected, but maybe they're just giving him time because obviously things are going so well. It could be. I remember when he got that injury in the World Club Cup. I think they were talking about like November kind of time last year, but obviously now November is long past now, and I'm not sure when we will see him the next time. But I guess he's got time to recover and be fully fit for like the World Cup and things like that, and the business end of the season. But for me, it's certainly the best Bayern attack we've seen since we've been doing the show. That's a no-brainer, Rory. And for me, obviously there are legendary Bayern attacks just in the last 20 years. I mean, obviously Ribery and Robben.
Yeah, that's
one. They can't be overlooked because they were goal machines and assist machines, weren't they? Obviously they played mostly with a few number 9s at that time, because that was before the days of mostly before the days of Lewandowski. They played with the likes of Mario Mandzukic, who was good, but come on, he's not Harry Kane, is he? Let's be honest. Although he does have a Champions League winner's belt, whereas he doesn't. Like, we've got to look at the Champions League winning team of 2022. That year it was Kingsley Coman, obviously playing in the wide position, but for me it doesn't fit what we're seeing at the moment. I think in terms of raw Bundesliga standard, this is the best attack we've seen, and statistically it's proven as well, because they're well on course to beating the goals record, the Bundesliga. So for me, yes. What do you think, Rory? Do you concur?
I do concur. I think, like you say, there is a little bit of recency bias in terms of what we watch right now in front of us. There's also a question of, what's in front of them. What are they playing against quality-wise? Is the standard of the Bundesliga certainly defensively one of the great things, what we love about the league is because defense is kind of like just something that they do every so often. So we see lots of goals. They've put 8 past Wolfsburg at the weekend, who came into it. Obviously, I know we've had the winter break, but came into it off the back of some good results. And, they get, Wolfsburg get back into the game as well. And they're just completely blown away just by, the other question is, against this attack that we see against Bayern is how do you stop them? As in, like, the low block doesn't work because they're interconnected passes, they're 1-2s. The way that they're so joined up is so good, you can't do that. They get to the byline ridiculously well and do cutbacks. They get goals through that, goals through crosses, goals through individual brilliance. You can't really play high up against them. I think that's maybe the best method, but also they'll get in behind just as easy. It won't necessarily be Kane sprinting behind using these runs like that. He'll come deep and he'll allow other people to run off him. So I think in recent time, since we've been doing the show, you mentioned the legendary pairing of Robben and Ribery, and I think they'd have a thing to say about this statement. But I think how can you not say it? Really. They go marching on very happily. The FCB and are looking good to collect another championship. But you never know. We're halfway through a season. There's Champions League, Pokal to play for. For them, the ultimate has to be the Champions League. They have to go for that and show their dominance in that sense. Show where they're at from a standard point of view. But interesting thing to talk about. If you disagree, if you have any big statements to shut me and Mark down or anything otherwise, let us know. Always want to hear your thoughts and opinions as well. Just before we move on, picking up a question or comment from DM. It's about Dortmund, who we've been talking about as well, who've dropped 10 points from winning positions. Had they held those leads, they would be 1 point behind Bayern, which is a very good point. Do they need better players, a better coach, or a better board? Mark, probably all three. I think for me, clearly, right now it's players for me. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but that is not, on paper, that is not a stellar BVB team. We have seen much better teams from a Dortmund point of view, collectively, individually, since doing the show. So DM, that's my slice of the pie and opinion on that. Mark, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would say the two biggest issues are, the board is a problem because it's just they're just chopping. There's so many people involved in that BVB board. I mean, I can't imagine the salaries they're picking up as well. Maybe it might be time for some of them to get kicked out in the near future. Because for me, it's much better to invest in the actual coaching and playing staff rather than these glorified, these glorified back office guys. Basically, it's one thing in German football I've just never understand. So, but it's like an old boys club in a lot of these teams. And to be honest, Bayern Munich are also guilty of it as well. I mean, Bayern also have this kind of old boys club in the background, but they have such good players that nobody mostly doesn't talk about it because the team's so good. But for me, the players aren't good enough. You're absolutely right, Rory. In all the time we've covered Dortmund, I mean, Haaland, Jude Bellingham, just Aubameyang, Lewandowski, Goetze, Hummels. The list is just endless of world-class players that Dortmund have had over the last probably 10, 15 years. But at the moment, are there any you could say are world-class? Probably. I mean, okay, Gurasi before he went off form, but he's really kind of nosedived, hasn't he, recently? You certainly can't say he's world-class at the moment. Schlotterbeck, some people might say he's world-class, but I think he still needs to go a half level higher to say that, yeah, for me. And some of the people they've got are just so form-based, aren't they? They're like Julian Brandt, Bayer, even Nemecha. These guys just blow hot and cold from week to week, and you can't have a title-winning team who have players like that, starting-level players who are like that. So for me, it is a case they just don't have good enough players. This is not an elite-level team. It's as simple as that to me. They've got a lot of players who would struggle to get on any Premier League lineups, I'll be honest with you now. So, yeah, I think it's not a good enough team. I think Kovac is the one I wouldn't say. I think he's done a good job with an average squad. He's taken them to a comfortable second. They're still going strong in the Champions League. So it's certainly not all bad for the BVB, but they're not going to be able to win the league with this squad for me. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, agreed. Right, well, we were going to do a bit of chat around Mainz, but I think because we've got midweek games, we'll maybe just finish up with some really quick fire predictions for the next match week. Because obviously loads of stuff coming up at the moment. Obviously, to the point, you can see obviously the results of the rest of the games that were happening this weekend. Another big win for Gladbach over your sympathisers, Augsburg, Mark, and some draws along the way as well. A couple of 2-2 draws, including Mainz, who were 2-0 up and threw it away at the end, and a good 2-1 win for Freiburg at home to Hamburg, getting them further up the table, and obviously with the 2 postponements as well. Let's just fire into the midweek round of games and just do some quick fire predictions, Mark. If we get them up here, if I can find them. Right, Tuesday, 5:30 UK, so 6:30 German time, Stuttgart, Frankfurt. I will say a 3-1 home win.
I'll go 3-2 Stuttgart.
Very good. Dortmund, Bremen. Obviously, Bremen didn't play at the weekend. Might be a bit of pressure, but Dortmund at home, you can rarely go against. I will say 3-0.
Yeah, I think Bremen traditionally have a decent record against Dortmund. But yeah, this Bremen side is struggling, even though they got the extra 3 days off. But they're not going to get anything from this. I don't think it could be a 3-0, but I go a 2-0 in this one for me, for the BVB.
Yeah, Hamburg hosting Leverkusen. Both teams lost at the weekend. Hamburg at home have obviously done quite well. Leverkusen will want and need to bounce back, but I'm going to call a bit of a shock one here. I might say 1-1. Depends on Paddy Schick as well if he's fit.
Yeah, it's a tough one, this, because, I mean, Hamburg were a little bit unlucky to go down to a late defeat in Freiburg. Obviously, Leverkusen have got to bounce back because that was a horrid performance, wasn't it, against... they were just completely outclassed by the VfB. So, as a result, I'm going to go for a Leverkusen win. I think they'll get a 3-1 win here just because of bounce-back ability. I think Leverkusen tend to be quite good at that, even since Alonso left. I think they tend to get a result after losing. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Leverkusen.
Yeah, the great man as well has been sacked today, hasn't he?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I saw that news. That's sad in many ways. He's welcome back in the Bundesliga anytime, anyway.
Yeah, he is. Mainz Heidenheim, talk about a must-win for the home side. The 0-5ers have to get a big W, and I will back them to do it. Heidenheim have got great character, and they showed that again at the weekend, but I will say a 2-1 home win.
Yeah, I think it's a case it's got to come eventually. I mean, they've not won, obviously, since mid-September. They need a win, even though, obviously, the performance have been much better under Fischer. They've still not managed to get over the line. They should have done at Union over the week, shouldn't they? They should have got that win. But I think they should get it, simply because they're going to have to get it, really. And I think the improved form of Hollerbach is important as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 here for Mainz.
Lovely. Wednesday night, early kickoff, Wolfsburg, St. Pauli. Pauli obviously didn't play at the weekend. Wolfsburg got absolutely destroyed by Bayern. Tricky one this, sit on the fence, 1-1 for me.
It's a tough one because all of a sudden now Wolfsburg have conceded 12 in the last 2 games either side of Christmas. So all of a sudden you were thinking things were looking better under Bauer, and now it's kind of back to square one. So I'm actually going to go for my first kind of big shot here, actually. I think Pauli with the extra 2 days break. I'm going to go for a scrappy 1-0 Pauli win here.
Very good. The Billy Goats host the record champions, Köln Bayern. I will say for this one, a away win, shockingly, 3-1.
Yeah, you can't back against Bayern, can you? And the Billy Goats they're not looking as good, unfortunately. I thought they were quite fortunate in that first half to get away with a point at Heidenheim. Heidenheim created so many chances in that game. Yeah. And probably should have won the game for me. So I am a little bit worried about Köln at the minute, and this is not what you want to finish off the Hinrunde at all. And I'm going to go for a 4-0 Bayern win, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Hoffenheim taking on Gladbach. Should be a good game, this, I think. You know, Gladbach feeling good about themselves after their big win. Tricky. Should be entertaining, should be goals. I will say 2-2, I reckon.
I'm going to line up with you there, Rory. This is one of possibly the most interesting game of the midweek because it's 2 teams who will be feeling very good about themselves. I think Gladbach are just in general looking a lot better at the moment. You know, obviously they lost a couple of games narrowly before Christmas, but we're a bit unlucky to lose those games. And I think that they should have enough to take a point. There'll be a lot of Gladbach fans there, I'm sure. Hoffenheim, if they win this one, this for me is a big strengthener for their Champions League aspirations. I think if they get a win, it's a really good win against this Gladbach side. But 2-2 should do, I think, in this one.
Leipzig Freiburg, also on Wednesday night. Leipzig, another team that did not play at the weekend. They'll be fresh. Freiburg struggle in these sort of games, I feel. So I will say a 3-1 home win.
Yeah, this is one of the kind of games which always seems to go the way of Leipzig. Whenever Freiburg play Leipzig, obviously most memorably in the Pokal as well when they beat them in the final. But it's got to be Leipzig, yeah, with that break. And I think Werner will really have got into them as well. And about him doing a lot of hard work after the poor end to the 2025. So I'll stick with you I'll go a 4-1 actually for Leipzig, I think.
Okay. And a very rare Thursday night Bundesliga game. I wonder what the ultras think to this one. Augsburg Union. Yeah, Union are a good team this season. You know, generally they've done well. I will back them to win. Not a particularly you know, amazingly end-to-end game. Maybe 2-1, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, FCA, it's just not looking good, unfortunately, at all. It is not looking good. For me, they are looking like a relegation team. I hate to say, I think unless they can pull something out this January, obviously they lost Philip Tietz to Mainz as well, which, okay, he wasn't getting first team, but for me, he's still the best of the strikers that they've got there. And for me, they are going to lose this game. I agree. And I think it's going to really mount pressure already on Manuel Baum, whose team hasn't scored in the 3 games since that win over Leverkusen. I think Union will get a 2-0 away win here.
Smashing stuff. So that's us for the evening. We wanted to make these shows a little bit shorter and more condensed. So that is going to be us for this evening. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Like we said at the start, one thing that we wanted to say or announce at the end of the show is that we have a new show starting tomorrow. We are going to be doing some more Bundesliga fantasy football related content. It's just going to be a quick kind of review of the top 5 performing players from each weekend. So it's just going to be a bit of an addition to what we've done from a fantasy perspective. So all you Bundesliga fantasy players, please do get involved and give it a little watch and let us know. We just want to see what sort of content everyone wants to pick up. It'll be a nice, short, condensed show, really covering those top performers, how they get the points, and maybe how you can exploit that for your fantasy football teams. So that's us for this evening. Mark, do you want to close up for the show?
Yeah, so if you enjoyed what you saw today, then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on your notifications as well to see one of our many shows that are coming your way. Also, don't forget as well that we are on social media to X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And then we're not only a YouTube channel, we're also a podcast as well. So don't forget to check out Spotify and Apple and give us a rating on there as well. So thanks a lot, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thanks to the likes of DM as well for checking in Left Footed. Always a pleasure to see you guys and what you've got to say to us. Check out the latest shows as well. And we'll see you again for the fantasy show tomorrow. So see you then, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.